Welcome to The Cynical Developer, the podcast that helps you to improve your development knowledge and career through explaining the latest and greatest in development technology and providing you with what you need to succeed as a developer. In this episode, we talk to John Sonmez about soft skills for developers. John is the founder of one of the biggest programming blogs on the internet at simpleprogrammer.com. He's also the author of the best-selling book, Soft Skills for Software Developers Life Manual. John is a life coach and motivational speaker who helps software developers, programmers and other IT professionals become better at their jobs, make more money and better their lives by making the complex simple. So welcome to Cynical Developer, John.
Thanks, James. I'm glad to be here. I was very excited to hear you say that my blog is one of the biggest blogs. I don't think I ever actually processed that. I was like, maybe it is. Maybe it's actually becoming one of the biggest blogs.
Yeah, it is. It's massive out there, and in the online circle of developer friends I have, I know they use it a lot, and we talk about it quite a bit, and. It's one of those funny things is that developers that I know online, they're all into their podcasts and their blogs and stuff, but a lot of the developers that surround me day to day in work and things aren't all that involved. So it's a bit of an odd one. I can't talk to everyone that I work with about this sort of stuff, but people that are online through Slack and Twitter and stuff, I talk to quite a lot. It's a bit of a strange one, it really is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how that works. People are either into it all or not at all. They don't know anything about podcasts or blogs or they're So yeah, that's pretty funny how that works.
Yeah, it is. It is odd, and I explained to a lot of my friends saying, "Oh, yeah, I'm doing this tech podcast about all these technologies and how people can do better at their careers and how they can advance themselves," and they just sit there and go, "Why?" Because I enjoy it, because I get something from it, because I'm giving something back to the people that are out there. I've struggled in the past with being shy and stuff like that, and not being able to come out and talk to people. And now I'm at that point in my life where I feel that what I know is good enough to start talking about what I know and actually putting it out there and helping other guys and girls that were in similar situations to what I was in.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's what life is all about too. It's like so many people miss out on life because they're just consumers. They never actually produce anything. They never actually get out there and go out, break out of the mold, because it's really easy to just live your life just a regular 9-to-5 job, and you just go in, you just go to work, and that's it. But you miss out on a lot. I mean, since that was me for a long time, was just the 9-to-5 developer, and talking about the blog with Simple Programmer. When I started that blog, that blog literally changed my life, completely changed my life. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's I've tried blogging quite a few times, and I am planning to start a blog with a Cynical Developer, but it's something that I've struggled with in the past to try and do, and you get sort of stuck in that imposter syndrome of sort of if I know about this stuff, then everyone else obviously knows about it, so why am I bother putting it out on the internet? And then that really curbs my enthusiasm for it, and it sort of drifts off. Whereas I thought, after being pushed by the likes of Chad Bostic and the guys over at Coding Blocks to say, get out there, do a podcast, I've sort of found my feet a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for, brave about putting my opinion out there. So I think I'm going to give it another go with the blog.
Yeah, it's good. I think a lot of people are afraid that someone's already said something, or it's already out there, it's already been done, and it's a valid concern. But the internet is large, and different people have different personalities and different backgrounds and different ways of presenting the material. So I think that there's always room. There's always room to put your own thing out there, your own spin on a thing. It doesn't matter if it's been done before. I mean, there's really nothing that's totally new under the sun, right? Everything has been said, has been done before, but it's how you do it, and I think that's what it's going to resonate with. We're all going to have different audiences. We're all going to have different people. There's some people that that are in my audience and Simple Programmer and watch my YouTube videos, and they just love it. They just love everything I put out. And there's some people that are like, man, John Sonmez is the scummiest, sleaziest guy on earth, and it's fine. It's just that's just how it is. So I think you've got to put your message out there in order to find you find your tribe, essentially. So.
Oh yeah, definitely, and I think it is hard to find that voice in yourself, because when I was younger, I was painfully shy and couldn't talk to people, and I had all these different fronts for different situations and different groups of friends that I spoke to. And then I went and did 6 years in retail, and that changes you. I think it's one of those things that either makes you or breaks you, and it brought me out of my shell and taught me some of the stuff that we're here really to, I guess, talk about today, which is the soft skills for a developer, because we're on the whole, on the average, probably very introverted people. Very few and far between extroverts. So people do find it hard to sort of stand out and be counted. And it's something that as a developer, I think to push your career forward, you need to work on and get better at.
Yeah, I totally agree that I came from a similar background. I was very shy as a kid, like so shy that I wouldn't even like call someone on the phone to make a doctor's appointment. So, but coming out of my shell and getting out there, it really changed things. I mean, it opens up such a wide world of opportunities, I think, that most people don't realize. And in your career as a developer, I mean, just the ability for you to be able to be someone that is able to communicate their ideas is such an important thing in your career, in your job. There's just these opportunities that you would not even know exist until you start to develop these type of skills.
Yeah, definitely. I think you get to a certain point that you could be a junior developer, maybe a mid-level developer, but as soon as you want to move up into that senior developer, or you want to take it any further, where you're going to be leading people, you can't really lead people and be hidden inside a box under your desk somewhere and away from everybody. You've got to be able to stand up and be counted.
Exactly. Yep. Definitely.
So on the same note with that as well, you get people that go the other way. And become massive egos. Now, having a massive ego isn't a problem, as long as I guess you deal with it in a good way. That you're not rubbing everybody up the wrong way and standing on your soapbox and saying I am the best and I know everything, and if whatever you say is wrong, and my way's right.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with that. I think that one of the things, I always try to make a distinction between arrogance and confidence, and arrogance is really just simply when you are projecting like you have some set of skills or something that you do not have and you know that you don't, and that's what comes off as arrogant, is when you know that you lack the thing that you're pretending to have. Whereas confidence is, if you know you've got it and you say it, it's confidence. There's a difference. It's very hard to come off arrogant when you actually have the skills to back things up. It's when we detect that there's some kind of mismatch there. And so I think that it's easy though to think that you can do more than you can as a developer, or that you know more and you know more than everyone else. And that's usually, like I said, usually that's masking confidence. And I think a lot of it relates back to kind of what we talked about before, just this idea that sort of just as software developers in general, I think that as a whole, the community tends to be, it's more likely that you're going to be a shy kind of introverted person, and maybe your self-confidence wouldn't be so high. So when you start to excel at something like programming, it's very easy to have a very large ego and to sort of come off as arrogant, because you're making up for this lack of true self-confidence. And so that's one of the reasons why I try to help developers really to develop what I call a true self-confidence, which is a true self-reliance on yourself, to know that whatever the situation, that you're going to be able to handle it, that you're going to be able to figure out how to adapt and learn and do whatever you need to do, as opposed to this kind of false, I think, and you see this all the time, right? In interviews, if you've interviewed someone, or maybe you've got one of those developers on your team that they've got to pretend like they know everything. They've got to answer everything, and it's coming from, that it's coming from them overcompensating. So I think there's definitely a big danger in there, and we see that a lot in the software development industry.
Yeah, I think with all the information that's out there, and you got all these rock star developers that are online and they're talking about all the new technology and things like that, I think it is one of those sort of aspects that people do sort of sit there and think that, well, I can't say I don't know because people are going to think less of me if I say I don't know. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend I know and then try and go and learn about it later on, rather than just putting their hands up in the air and saying, look, I don't know. Explain to me, tell me. Because for me, that's the best way to learn. And
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's better to just say, I don't know. You know, one of the phrases I like to use all the time is I don't know, but I will find out. You know, or like or if you can ask, yeah, I don't understand this. Could you explain it to me? Right, that's a fine answer as well. But I usually try to take the route of, especially what's useful in an interview is to say, yeah, I'm not sure, but I am curious. I'm going to figure that out. That shows capability. That shows that it shows both that you're confident because you know that you're adaptable to whatever the situation is, and it also shows that you are able to to figure out that you're self-reliant. That if you run into a problem that you can't solve, that you're going to go and you're not just going to pretend like you know the answer, or you're not going to give up. You're going to go and be resourceful and find the answer. And I think that's really one of the key things that makes someone really good at their job is that ability. That's, at least when I'm hiring, that's what I'm looking for. Is I'm looking for not necessarily the highest of technical skills, although that's nice, but I want to find someone who, and I think most people that are hiring are really looking for someone that can go and run with it, that they're going to get the job done no matter what, whether or not they know how to do it right away. And I think that's critical.
yeah, definitely, it's something that I've looked at both as an employer and as an employee. I've hired quite a few people into teams and stuff, and for me, definitely coming in, I would rather that you sit there and say I don't know than try and sort of blag your way through it and make it up. And I take that as well, looking from other people coming and me interviewing them for me into interviews as well. I've recently started a new role as a permanent developer, and there were times in the interview for that role that I had to sit there and say I don't know, and it obviously wasn't reflected too badly on me because they offered me the job and I took it.
Right.
But I think it was that ability to say I don't know and that openness that I know that there are things I don't know, and they're willing to go out there and learn. Because you're always going to learn something off everybody that's around you. Even the junior that comes and joins the team, you might have been doing this for 15, 20, 30 years, but you're always going to learn something new because there's so much out there.
Exactly. Yeah. We're at a point where no one can know it all at this point. Technology moves so fast. There's so much out there. The best that you can be is someone that has a good fundamentals, that understands the basics, the principles behind software development, and is someone that can go out and learn, and not only learn things, I think, quickly, but also be able to teach them, to be able to be a mentor, to be able to help other people and guide them. And that's one of the things also that, like, doing something like the podcast that you're doing, or or getting out there and writing blog posts or something like that, is it shows your ability to be able to mentor and help other people, which is such a critical component on any team.
Yeah, yeah, definitely is. I've brought up junior developers up to developer level and beyond, and it's nice to be able to help people and give them that little bit extra in their career, and sort of say, well, this isn't quite right, but this is how you do it, and dealing with people that know how to take that constructive criticism well, because I know a lot of people that any criticism is bad criticism to them, and I think that is a part of that imposter syndrome that they feel because they need to know it and they should know it, that you're in some way putting them down in it, that their skills aren't there, rather than the fact that, as you said, we can't know everything. The industry's moving at such a rapid pace. We can't know everything. It's just impossible. There's so much out there, so many frameworks, so many programming languages. I've got a list as long on my arm as of languages I'd like to learn, but I'll never get to the end of it because I keep adding to the bottom of it.
Yep, yep, it's very true. Yeah, and what you said about criticism, I think it's one of those things also that's like, you've got to be, you should, most people don't take criticism. I think that that 99% of people will not take criticism effectively. And so I always say that you should always be the person who is able to accept criticism, to take criticism, but never ever give it. Because most of the time when you give criticism out, you're going to be running up against the 99% of people that don't effectively take it, even if it's constructive criticism. So it's only going to harm a relationship, and it's not actually going to produce the desired result. It might be, you might be intending to help this person, and what you say might be true, it might be good for them. But if they're one of the 99% of people that don't take criticism effectively, then it's really not going to produce anything. And so I always try to emphasize, I want to be the person who takes criticism but doesn't give it. So if someone does, because there's plenty of people that will give you criticism, so if you could be the person that can learn and adapt from that, again, it doesn't mean that just because someone gives you criticism that you just necessarily do what that you respond by changing, but you take it in. It's counsel, right? And that's, it's how you take it. I think that it can also make a huge difference. I think also in the workplace, in just how people respect you, because you know those people that you can talk to, and you know that they have an open mind. They'll consider, they may be in an argument with you and they may think one thing, but if you know that you could appeal to their logic, because you know that if you convince them of something, that they're willing to change their mind. But then you also know those people that once they've said something, that there's no change in their mind. It doesn't matter how wrong, they're never going to, backpedal. They're never going to admit that they're wrong or change their opinion. And so you want to be the kind of person that has that people believe that talking to you and using logic will actually have an effect, because that's the kind of developer that you're going to respect.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is a very fine line between how you help somebody to move on from an incorrect understanding, shall we put it as, and I suppose come out and directly say you are wrong, rather this is how it is, and trying to be nice about it, I guess, rather than that really sort of blunt and to the point exchange. And that's something that I definitely struggle with. I am pretty blunt. I don't mix my words, and it does come off as being a little bit offensive at times, and people do take it the wrong way. But it's just one of those things you've got to live with, unfortunately, and hopefully develop from.
Yeah, I think there's a mix. I think there's a way to do it, because I'm pretty blunt, like I'm pretty direct. I don't want to lie to people. I don't like to blow smoke up someone's ass. I'm gonna say it how it is. But a lot of times the way that I can do it is that I'll do it with a lot of questions. So I might just ask them, like, "Oh, that's interesting. Like, why would you choose to do this?" And then you kind of see what they're going to say, and then you can kind of guide with questions where you're still being very much, you're not lying. You're not saying, "Oh, this is a interesting and great way of doing it." That's
Yeah,
not what you think. No, this is horseshit. But at the same time, you're getting them to realize this is horseshit, like because the questions you're asking are leading them down the path, and then it's very much it's their own discovery. Oh, I see. Yeah, that doesn't seem so good. Okay. And as opposed to you directly confronting them where they're gonna dig in their heels and double their fists. So yeah, I think there's definitely a balance. It's hard because you don't want to be one of those people that is just telling people what they want to hear, because that's no good. That doesn't there's no value in that. There's too many of those people in the world. But at the same time, being very, very confrontive, and and every time confronting people in a very abrasive way, it just makes them dig their heels in deeper. So you've got to kind of find that balance and figure out, and there's different techniques. I think different people are able to do it in different ways.
yeah. Because we're saying that there's this 99% of people that are going to take criticism the wrong way. They're either going to take it and go on the defensive, or they're going to go on the offensive. What is sort of like? What would your advice be to how to deal with those sort of people?
The people that aren't going to take criticism the right way.
Yeah. How you approach that now? I know you said about asking questions and that, but I've worked with a lot of people in the past that once they get on that offensive or defensive stage, that it's very, very hard to move them, and they won't listen to anything that you say at all.
So there's one thing, that a technique that I'll give you that I think works pretty well, and is sort of a rapport establishing type of technique that you can utilize that can benefit you throughout that relationship, especially if you have to work with this person for a while, which is to pick a small hill and and give in on that. So you look for especially if you got someone that's just extremely argumentative and they're just always like that. You look for something small, right? So you don't pick the big hill, but you pick something small and you say, okay, so next time I get into an argument with this person, then I'm going to just do a 180. I'm just going to say, you know what, and look for something that, I mean, there's always things that we're wrong about that we're not willing, or that it doesn't matter. It
Yeah.
could go either way, right? So you pick something and you say, you know what, Bob, you know what, I think you've convinced me. Actually, you know what, I'm wrong. I think you're right, and I am wrong. And yeah, you know what, I agree with you. Let's do it your way, or what you said. Very 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 convincing argument that you made, and their jaw is just going to drop because they're going to be shocked, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you got to be genuine about it, right? You can find, because there's always a spot where you can pick. I'm not saying to just lie and pretend like they've got this great idea when they don't, but there's a lot of ideas where it's just an opinion. And so if you can give in to them on something small, then a lot of times they're going to gain a lot of respect for you. And it's also going to create this reciprocity type of situation where kind of underlying human behavior is this idea of reciprocity. If you do something for me, I feel like I want to do something for you. And so if you do that, then it's more likely that when they get into the next time you get into a discussion, and it is something of actual merit, that a hill that you do want to die on, that perhaps that they will then return the favor and actually go your way on something.
Yeah.
So I find that's kind of a good softening technique to be able to do that, especially when you're finding yourself in a conflict with someone. A lot of times, usually if you can just break it one time, break that pattern where it's not just you at their throats and you guys in battle all the time, but you actually give in on a smaller thing, that can really really help in the long run.
Yeah, sure. So you're sort of making those stepping stones to help you build that bridge across the water there.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Sure. I think one of the skills that I suffer with finding the balance on is that work-life balance, because it always goes from one way to another. You're either not focusing too much or enough on your career, and you're maybe focusing too much on life outside of it, or it's the other way around. And I often get told that I work far too much, that I spend every waking hour doing something that I consider productive, rather than sitting and watching TV or playing computer games and things like that. I've got an Xbox One. I've got a Day One edition. It probably gets turned on maybe once every couple of months. Very, very few and far between. Now, I find that balance a little bit hard, and in the past I have driven myself into the ground by burning the candle at both ends, doing too much, partying too hard and working too hard. And I think that comes into sort of developer skills, is the fact that you start to find your feet, and then all of a sudden you get to that level in your career, or you get to that point that you've been aiming for, and now it's, I've got to keep this momentum up, because if I don't and I fall back, I'm going to have people look at me going, what happened to him? He was up here.
Right.
And now he's not. Now he's not working at 150, 160% now. He's doing about 80%.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge one. I think this is where more people mess up than anything else. I think there's some basic. What I would say is that you hear a lot of advice on this, and one of the kind of worst advice that you hear on this is that you hear from someone who's been really successful, and they've had they worked really hard in their past, and they say, oh yeah, if I could go back, I wouldn't work as hard in my 20s, or I wouldn't have worked as hard early in my career. I didn't need to work 60 and 80-hour weeks. I would have told myself to take it a little bit easier. And that's kind of bullcrap advice, because there's phases, there's seasons of life, and there's reasons why that person that become super successful, they were super successful partially because they worked their ass off
Yeah.
for some period of time. But that doesn't mean that you need to do that all the time. It just means that, the way I look at it is you got to recognize that there's a couple of things. Everything in life has seasons, right? And our bodies are on a rhythm, right, of sleeping and wakefulness, and right, we've all have these natural cycles. And so I think that's what you really have to tap into, is you have to realize, like, okay, what are your goals? I mean, if you really want to get ahead, if for anyone that wants to be an entrepreneur and build a business, there's no way. I mean, I busted my ass working 80-hour weeks for a couple of years in order to get my Pluralsight courses done, to be able to build simple programming, to do all this stuff. There's no way I would have done that at a slower pace. Like I basically, it was a lot of work. It was a ton of work. Now I don't have to run at that pace anymore. Okay, now I've got other things, but it doesn't mean that I don't from time to time go. Now I'm more, have a cyclic approach. And so I think that one of the key things is just to realize that, first of all, there's seasons of life. So what are you trying to do? If you're trying to really, really get ahead, you're going to have to pay the dues. You're going to have to bust ass. I don't know anyone who's been extremely successful without having the work ethic and putting in the time and sacrificing at least a couple of years of their life of working like a dog to get ahead. It just doesn't happen if you want to go there, right? And then there's also just the periodic, right? Like, how can you sustain and how can you stay ahead? I think a lot of people, is what they'll do is they'll turn on the afterburner and they'll work really, really hard, and they won't watch any TV or play any video games, and they'll just bust ass for a while, and then they burn themselves out and they go the other way, and they just like do nothing except for party and play games and watch TV and overeat, and like they go downhill. And so the one really important thing that I always kind of think about as damage control and treading water. So what we got to do really is you push when you can push, right? So, and I go through this where a period of time where I'm just working, I'm busting butt, I'm being extremely productive, not wasting any time, and I'm just getting stuff done left and right, making forward progress, making forward progress, making forward progress. But then I hit a point where I hit this lull, kind of this natural lull. And instead of just letting myself be totally burnt out and I do nothing and I roll back down the hill, what I do is, I hold the boulder up and I just rest for a little bit.
Yeah,
But I,
yeah.
I don't let the boulder crush me. I hold it. Right? That's the key. That's treading water. It's like swimming across a lake, and it's like you're tired. And so instead of just drowning, you tread water. So that means that maybe instead of saying, okay, well, that's it, and I'm just gonna, destroy everything I've done, and I'm not going to write any more blog posts or do any more podcasts, or you just like figure out a way, how can you like maintain where you're at, reduce damage control as much as possible. Let's not eat the whole cheesecake ourselves. Right? Let's like, just because we're not going for a run today or whatever, what I mean, like,
Yeah.
figure out what is the maintenance that you can do, and you hold that pace for like a week or 2 weeks, so you kind of, it's active recovery, right?
Sure.
And then you're ready to make another sprint again. And that's the key. That's like the people that are most successful in life are able to do that. The people who are least, because the thing that determines your success ultimately, I believe, is the mean time between failure. How long it takes you to get back on the horse, right? How long when you screw up that takes you, and how far do you fall when you fall? Because we're all going to mess up. We're all going to fail. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to roll back down the hill a little bit. But how far do you roll back when you roll back? And the people that are really good at not rolling too far down the hill, those are the people that end up being successful, because every time that they push and they make forward progress, and they're constantly improving. Whereas there's some people that are just like, they push up that hill and they're pushing it hard, 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 hard. And then when they give up, they roll all the way down past where they started, and they're starting over from ground zero or negative. And so cumulatively their life becomes worse. So that's, it's a compound effect. It's this cumulative effect. And it all has to do with just understanding that there's seasons and that there's cycles, and your goal, the name of the game is hold the line. Do not lose ground when you screw up, because you cannot be perfect. You have to know you will screw up. It's just how much damage is going to happen when you do screw up.
Yeah, it's one of those things that that I've done as well, and those friends that are telling me that I work too much, they always laugh and joke about. So what are you doing now? What's your latest scheme? Because I've done I run my own web hosting company. I've done web design companies. I was a graphic designer in a past life. I'm a programmer now. I had a pet shop license, and I ran a import and breeding of tropical fish business for 3 years. But that it started to pay for itself, and all the other ones did start to pay for themselves, but they just weren't where the passion was, and it didn't. It wasn't having the benefits and the fruits that I wanted. So it was learning to go, right, that's it. Call it quits. Let's try something new and keep going. Don't, as you say, don't sit back on your laurels and wait for someone else to do it, because there's no one out there that will push you forward. And exactly. I think it comes back to leading by example, I think, because a lot of my friends, they, like I've said, they said, you work too much. But then they look at the things that I've got around me, the things that I do, and how I can afford to do the things that I do, and they're saying, "Oh, how do you doing that?" Because I work my ass off to right. get there, and this is how you do it. I can tell you how I'm doing it, and you can listen to that and then go and find your own way to do it. But definitely bringing everyone along for the ride is a big thing for me, and not sitting in my ivory tower going, "Peasants, learn it for yourself."
Exactly. Yeah. And that's so critical. Like, anyone can, if they're willing to put in the work and willing to stick it out for long enough. But most people aren't. That's the thing is that you'll find it. There's a real good book for anyone that's been. You should read this if you haven't already. It's called Be Obsessed or Be Average. It's by Grant Cardone.
Yeah, I think I've added that one to Audible. I think it was this week or last week. It's on my to listen list.
Okay, yeah, he really just nails the people that tell you you're working too hard, and he talks about just being obsessed. And it's like, what do you want? You want to be mediocre? You want to be average? Or you want to be great? If you're going to be great, you're going to be working hard. You're going to be doing busting ass. That's like what what is there in life? You should hit it hard, and people that tell you otherwise, a lot of times people tell you that. They say you're working too hard because you make them feel bad about themselves. You make them feel guilty because they know they should be working harder. They know they should be doing things, and they're not. And so they want you to, it's not intentional. It's not like they want to see you fail. They just don't want to see you reminding them of their own failures all the time. And so if they can stop you and crush your dreams, then they don't have to have that reminder. So, they're not doing it on purpose. It's just kind of a natural human thing. And so when you kind of realize that, and you realize it's nothing personal, it's just like everything that they're telling you has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. I think that helps a lot because then you realize, like, and also, you get that confidence. Like, I used to be very influenced by what people said, and when people say, "Oh, you're working too hard, or you're doing this or that," and now my response is, you know what? I do what I want.
Yeah.
I do what I feel is right. And I'm just going to make that choice. Doesn't mean I don't ever take any wisdom or wise counsel in, but ultimately it's my life. I'm not going to put expectations on other people. I'm not going to respond to other people's expectations. I'm not going to live in guilt. I'm not going to try and please other people. I'm going to do what pleases me, and that's the best way to live your life. So that's what I found, at least.
Yeah, you've got to do what you've got to do to get to that goal, and finding what your goal is quite hard. I found myself last year sort of sitting here thinking, for the first time in a long time, I didn't have that goal that I was striving for. I'd sort of sat back and become a 9-to-5 developer, and I was like, this isn't me. I need to be doing something extra, because I'd stopped my tropical fish business. I'd stopped doing my websites. I'd got rid of my clients from that, and I found myself with this free time that I didn't know what to do with, and I can't sit and do nothing. I can't sit and watch TV. I can't sit and just slob out. I need to be active, and my brain needs to be doing something. And I was speaking to Chad Bostic about it, and sort of saying, what do you suggest that I do? And I've tried these different things. And I came up with different project ideas that I had in the past, and sort of reevaluated them. Is there any ground in these? And we ended up falling on the podcast. It means that I've now got something to aim for, and I know what I'm trying to do with the podcast, and it gives me that thing to strive for. So having those goals, I think, is paramount, because if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to know how to get there?
Exactly. Yeah. There's so many people that do not have any kind of goal in their life or don't have any direction in their career. They just, I always talk about how the idea that everyone thinks that someday they're going to be a rock star, right? This is like, and this is kind of a sad realization, I think, for a lot of people, is to realize that, look, no. It's not that someday you're just going to become rich or become a rock star or an actor, or like all this stuff is just going to, like, it's not just automatically going to happen to you. I think a lot of times we have that kind of subconsciously in the back of our head that, well, someday, I'll get my due. No, it's not happening. Like, you're gonna die old and alone, like, unless you do something, like, and poor. Like, it's that's the default. The default is nothing good is going to happen. So you got to have some kind of goal. You got to figure out a way to make it happen. Otherwise, it's not. I mean, you're gonna get there, and you're gonna say, well, what happened to my life? And it's going to be because you were just waiting, because you didn't have a goal, you didn't set the course, you didn't set the direction, and you didn't choose something to go after, and you just were waiting. You're waiting to win the lottery. You're waiting for your big break to happen, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And so I think that's critical. It's scary, I think, for a lot of people to realize that, but we've all got to realize that. We've all got to realize that, hey, look, if you want something, you're going to have to go and take it. You're going to have to go and get off your ass and figure out what it is that you want. First of all, what steps it's going to take to get there, and then put in the work and do it. And that's, that's the only way.
Yeah, definitely. It's there's a lot there to mull over, and for people to think about, and try and work out what they want to get out of it. Because, as you say, you don't want to get to the end and sort of think, well, what if? I've tried all these different things, and it's a case of, well, I tried. If it didn't make it, it didn't make it, and it's one of those, I tried. I can't do any better than that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we've sort of diverged a little bit from the soft skills for developers, and we've gone into a lot of how you actually achieve in your career as well. So I think there's a myriad of things in this show to actually think about and sort of digest, and this feeds into the sort of the mini series that I've started, that you're finding as a listener either side of our shows now, where I'm going to be covering how to become a developer, how to get through an interview, how to be productive, and how to actually achieve your goals, and fail fast and get there. And for somebody like John being on here, who is probably one of the most successful podcasters that I'm aware of, to come and sit here and give us some advice and some pointers on what we're doing, I think is fantastic. And I think we're almost out of time, really. So what I would just like to ask is there anywhere that you could suggest for our listeners to go and maybe look up about these soft skills, learn more about achieving? Where can they find this information?
So I did write a book called Soft Skills: A Software Developer's Life Manual. You can check that out. That's if you go to simpleprogrammer.com/soft skills. That's a link to the book, and that's where I have a lot of the. I sort of define everything that's non-technical for software developers, including fitness, finance, relationships, career, all of these things. The dynamics, mindset, a lot of stuff that we talked about today are all soft skills in my opinion. And in that book, I cover all of those things. So that's probably the place that I would recommend if you haven't read the book. I've got an audio version on Audible as well. And then I would say, if you're looking for more info, I sort of bill myself as the soft skills guy for software developers. So if you go to simpleprogrammer.com, you can find my articles. My biggest presence today is on YouTube. I'd say I do about 2 to 3 YouTube videos a day, and it's almost all soft skills content from, and I cover quite a wide variety of things, a lot of questions that people ask, and that's where I'm devoting a lot of my time lately. But yeah, I think that's that's probably it.
Yeah, sure. We'll get all those links up in the show notes. And I'm quite aware that you do the YouTube stuff, and I don't actually get to watch the YouTube videos very often, to be honest. I consume a lot of the stuff via the podcast, so there is stuff that I miss out on because I'm not looking at the YouTube channel, which I need to find some time to go and look at as well. Because it's hopefully something that in the next 12 months that I'd like to progress to with this podcast is doing some videos to accompany each episode, giving the listeners a little bit more for a little bit more bang for their buck, I suppose.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. YouTube is I really like the video medium. I like the ability to I feel like it's a little more engaging. Like people can see you and it's more interactive. But it's been fun. It's kind of hard though. It's getting in front of that camera is like the next step of really overcoming the shyness. Is like it's harder than public speaking. I think is to get in front of a camera. So
yeah, definitely. I've often been told I've got a face for radio, not for television, and I can get up and talk in front of people. I do it for some of the tropical fish societies that I'm involved with. I get up and I do auctions, and I've given talks there. But doing it on a technical basis for development, it's something a little bit different. It's strange how it works. That I'm quite apprehensive about doing it, whereas I could get up and talk about fish and not really care all that much. Whether you believe what I'm saying or you don't, it's just one of those things. But I guess, like with the podcast, it's something that you're going to get over eventually, and it's one more skill to add to the back belt.
Yeah, I always think of it as like nothing really bad can happen. Like you're either going to do well and you'll succeed, or you'll do bad and you'll learn.
Yeah.
And people will tell you, and they'll help you learn. They'll give you a little bit of a thicker skin. So sure. It always works out for the good as long as you can stick through. As long as you can like make it through whatever try. Everything that you do new is always a trial, right? And then you get through it and you figure it out, and then pretty soon you look back on it and you're like, wow, I can't believe how far I've come. So yeah, definitely. And as I said before, there's a lot to take in, I think, over the last 40 minutes or so. And it's been good. I've really enjoyed it. I was a little bit apprehensive to start with because a bit of that starstruckness of, oh my God, it's John Sonmez coming on to talk to me on my podcast. But do you know what? It's been amazing. I've really enjoyed it. It's been good, and I hope the listeners are going to get something out of it, and I hope they enjoy the episode as well. Well, thanks, James. I appreciate you having me on the podcast. So
yeah, it's great. Thanks for coming on.
All right, take care.
Thanks for listening to The Cynical Developer. I'm James Stoddart, and you've been listening to John Sonmez talking about soft skills for developers. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on your favourite podcast platform and help The Cynical Developer to grow by increasing its audience. If you have any questions about this or any other episode, then drop us an email, a tweet, or leave a comment on the website where you can find all the resource links and show notes for each episode.